Hello, everyone, and welcome to Watching Code Office Hours, session 93. If you're new to Office Hours, the idea is really simple. The whole point is that you don't get stuck at any point when you're doing the material at Watching Code. So if you're stuck on any lesson, usually when you're learning online, it can get really tough because you don't have anyone to turn to for help. But with Watching Code, you can just go ahead and ask me directly and make sure you don't get stuck for too long. So the way it works is I'll just talk through a couple logistics and then we'll get started with your questions. So the first thing is you want to join the Facebook group to hear about upcoming sessions and other updates. I rarely send emails, so this is pretty much the only way to keep up to date with what's going on. Second, if you have a question today, then you must call in. The link to call in, like a bunch of students have already, is right here in this document. And if you're watching on the YouTube live stream, the link to the document is right below the video feed. So look for that. New stuff, I copied this over from last time. So no new stuff this time yet. I'm working on the next video in the underscore series, so that's my focus right now. But if you haven't checked out this thing, the videos I released just last week on functions and variables in practical JavaScript, you want to check that out too. So for a reminder, if you haven't seen that yet, and that was released last week. So nothing new yet this week. Working on the underscore series. And that's it for me. From here, we'll just go into open questions. And I'll try to call in people in the order that they called in. So if you're watching and you have a question, then make sure you get to this document and call in. Otherwise, I will not see your question. Andrew? Are you there?
Hey, Gordon.
Hey.
You can come to me last. I do have a question, but it was very recently discovered, like earlier today. I haven't had a chance to look into it, so it could actually be a really simple thing, and I thought it would just be a nice thing to bring up if there was no questions and time needed to be filled. So I can wait till everybody else.
Okay, cool. Yagna, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Gordon.
What have you been up to? Do you have any questions that you're looking at?
No questions as such. I just moved to the fifth video of the accounting JS, which is the scopes, locals, closures, and all that. Very informative. I think it really connected well with the new material that you introduced in practical JS about variables and functions, the scope concept, and it really built in very well with this video. Yeah, I think I'm progressing well. Typically, whenever I have questions, I just put it out in the console or read documentation about things, and it usually clears up for me. Yeah, I'm really excited to continue on the accounting JS part, and I think there's a lot of code that I have to handle in that, but I think I'll take the steps and learn in time. But yeah, no questions as such, and I'll just pass it on to the next person.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Yagna. Next, Tanner.
Hey, I don't have any questions. I'm just I'm setting up the Angular tutorial before I dive into the book club stuff.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Tanner. Let's go to Joe. I think you were next.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna just ask what. Okay, I just finished the second version in the premium, and what I'm doing now is I'm actually rewriting all that code in vanilla JavaScript. So there's like a part that I'm working on, and I was wondering like what if you have any like advice or like any kind of guidelines for how I should do that to get the most out of it, since that's what I'm doing now.
Can you be more specific? I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay, all right. I guess for instance, when I look at the
sharing the
to do
screen so you
MVC,
can see your code can be helpful.
yeah. Um, second. Okay, so I don't know. I just kind of got used to using Plunker, and I've been using it.
Can you turn off the
Yeah,
render vision?
I'm turning it off. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know what in particular should I show you. Should I show you what I'm working on?
Well, what's your question?
Okay. Well,
What do you have?
yeah. 1 second. Okay, so I guess one way of doing it would be to kind of go through the code line by line, the actual to do MVC code line by line, and then translate that to vanilla JS. What I'm doing is I'm kind of looking more at the actual app, and I'm basically trying to replicate the mechanics of the app in with regular JavaScript. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I guess like little things like the HTML, for instance, or actually like the actual app, it's got like this whole format that I guess is based on CSS and some other stuff that I guess I haven't really been looking at. I don't know if should I try to get the app to look exactly the same, or is it really more just about the mechanical, like how it works with, based on like the double clicking and what happens when you blur or versus when you focus, and making sure that, when like the toggle buttons work and all that stuff, and then setting up the footer. So I'm trying to make a structural replication without getting too heavy into any of the CSS. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that, whether I should look at that more, or if do you get what I'm saying, Gordon?
Yep. Wait, can you stop sharing?
Yeah.
Or yes, go on this page. My thoughts are, in terms of the CSS, the focus really is just on the JavaScript. So
Right.
I would try to ignore that. You can just use the CSS that's already there, and so then you don't need to worry about it. You might need to, figure out when you need to use a particular class, but that's probably the extent of it.
Okay.
The HTML, I would want you to treat it similarly. You'll need to understand it to make sure the application works the way you expect it to, but I don't think it's helpful to start from a blank page in this case. Because again, I think the focus is really on the JavaScript. What you're going to have to end up doing is you will have to modify the HTML quite a bit to not use handlebars. I'm not sure if you're...
That's kind of where that's the part where I'm at. That's why I have this question, because I'm getting to those parts and I'm starting to see that those issues come up.
So modifying the HTML to work without handlebars, I think, is a really good exercise, because you really need to think about what handlebars is doing, and then you need to still have that work happen, but in another way, right? So you have to almost substitute your own code for the work that handlebars is doing. So I think that's like a really good exercise. It really forces you to confront exactly what's happening and to figure those subtle details out, which is really helpful. So yeah, does that answer your question? So start with the CSS that's already there, start with HTML that's already there, and then don't worry about the CSS as you'll have to go as far as like knowing when to use a class or not. And then, so that's for the CSS. As far as the HTML and handlebars, just start from the existing index HTML and then work from there. It's still a lot of work to do that. I think that will really help you solidify the JavaScript stuff. The other thing you could do is maybe focus on first removing jQuery, and then you're taking out jQuery and then putting in your own JavaScript. And you can do that method by method, or there are probably a bunch of different ways to do that. But you could probably separate that large task, right? Removing jQuery. You could probably separate that out from removing handlebars and treat that as two different tasks. Does that make sense? Rather than try to do both of them at the same time, which could get overwhelming, I would imagine. In terms of like which one to do first, remove handlebars first or remove jQuery first, I am not sure what would make more sense. You might have to look at, like, do a little bit of each and then see which one makes more sense. You might find that, right? Because sometimes when you start to work on it a little bit, you realize, it actually makes sense.
At some point,
yeah. But just looking at it now, I'm not able to forecast out. It's something I would probably just try it out too, and then see how it works. It might be a case where it doesn't really matter which one you do first. The trade-off is unclear. And in that case, just pick one and go with it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I should I'll take all of that into consideration as I progress, for sure.
Yeah, and then the key thing is to really break down the requirements. So, regardless whether you're using just JavaScript or jQuery or a framework or handlebars or whatever, what's really important is to think about what needs to be done and have it be very clear-headed about that. Like, this has to happen, this has to happen. And those things are independent of any tool you use, right? So it's really important to have those things clear in your mind and like break down those pieces into the smallest units possible, and then order them in a way that you can tackle them one by one. So, the general rule of thumb for me is break them down into the smallest units possible. You may have heard me call them atoms before, right? You want atoms, not molecules. And then after that, you want to order them by specificity, least specific to most specific, right? Because you want to get the most general thing done first. You don't want to work on a tiny detail as the very first thing before you get the base down. So work on, once you have those atoms laid out in any order, just get them down in one way or another. Then you want to order them by specificity, and then work through them one by one. After you do each item, after you turn each requirement into code, you want to then reevaluate the order of the remaining things, because sometimes your initial assumptions are wrong, and so you need to constantly reevaluate the situation as you learn more about the problem.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Joe, is there anything else I can help you with?
Okay, yeah, I just, again, in regards to the CSS, right. All right, here we go. All right, so in the To-Do MVC app, when you double click and it does the editing, like it adds a class, it adds two classes, I think. It adds an editing class and then a .edit class. And I'm basically trying to replicate this feature in in the with just vanilla JavaScript. And what I guess I'm wondering is, like, is this input box? I'm not even entirely sure how to phrase the question, but okay, like when you double click, you're essentially you're changing the class to editing, and then this li essentially becomes an input box. But is that being handled by CSS or handlebars in some way that I'm not seeing, or is that all JavaScript?
Joe, how can you answer this question? How can you find these things out?
Okay, I guess I can. Like I looked at it. All right, so
Well, my question for you is, when you double click, what method runs?
Okay, when I double click I think it's the. One second. When I double click the edit method runs.
Can you show me? Can you prove that to me in the debugger?
See sources. Do you want to come back to me in a little bit?
Joe, how do you look at the files that are available on this page?
Oh, good. There you go. Okay, so I guess I opened up I put a break, and I double clicked, and it paused. It opens up at the edit method in the code, and
so what's your question right now? So here you can see what's happening exactly.
Right, it's using through jQuery. I guess it's handling the event, and then it's using .closest to select the. I guess it's selecting the closest li. I guess to the event target. Then it's adding a class of editing, and then I guess it's.
So you may want to review. Well, first you'll want to look at this code more in depth, because it looks like you haven't done that yet. And two, it may be helpful to review the video that goes through this.
Okay.
And once you understand the work that's happening, then you can take the next step, which is to replicate it. It's difficult to replicate it if you don't know exactly what's going on.
Okay, for sure. All right.
Do you have a question about what's happening here?
Well, I added the class in with vanilla, and it doesn't create the input. So I guess I'll go look at the video again.
Yeah, well, you'll want to look and debug your code and see what the difference is, because something different is happening, and that's you have to investigate that. I can't tell just from this conversation.
Okay,
But you should probably run the debugger through whatever method runs on DoubleClick for you, and then make sure the editing class is added. If it's not, why not?
okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Cool. Good work, Joe. Larry, what's up? Wait, is this your first time? Welcome. You're muted.
Oh.
I can hear you now. Yep.
Hi. Yeah,
Hey.
This is my first time.
What are you where are you at with the material? Like, have you just started, or
Just
you gonna
started on functions actually.
Mhm.
But before I came here to this website, I was using FreeCodeCamp and Udacity. But I was doing Udacity to do the pre-prep for the prep for you know what I mean? The pre-prep for the prep for Hack Reactor.
Okay.
Right? So they make you do this pre-prep for the prep for. So then I saw this because that was one of the requirements. And it seemed like I probably should have started here first instead of trying to start with the Udacity or the FreeCodeCamp. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm just starting out.
Got it. Cool. So you're in like version 2 or something, right? Version 2 or 3?
Yeah, I think it's 2.
Cool. How is it going so far? Do you have anything you're not sure about, or any questions?
The weirdest question, the most challenging issue I'm having right now is mainly not so much with the code, because the basics up to this point I was okay with from learning from FreeCodeCamp. But what I'm having the most challenge with is the console. Every time my console loads, right, it comes out with like a couple of errors before I even do anything. And then I try to like click on some of the options above the console. I guess it has to do with the display, things that it will display, and sometimes it will help. But when I try to run it again, then I get those same 3 errors, and so I'm trying to debug that before I even get the.
Can you show me? Can you show me what you're seeing?
This is my first time really using Google Hangout, so.
So you're very confused, as everyone is, even people that use it every day. So at the top left, there's a green screen share button that's invisible until you hover in the top left.
Okay, so I see that thing. Wait.
Click that.
Okay, so I click that, and then click share, right?
Yes. So you can share a specific window if it's working now. Your screen sharing.
Okay. So full screen. So if I was here, right? Well, I don't have any code on this one. Functions.
Version 2 of our application is going to be all.
You don't need all that. You know who you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was supposed to go to inspect, right? And then console. Can you see this?
Yeah. Yes. So you can ignore these. If you want a truly blank console that doesn't have this stuff, go to your. Can you close the console right now?
What do I
It's
do?
the X in the top right.
Okay.
And then type about : blank.
Then blank.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hit enter. And now open up the console.
On the same tab or a new tab?
This same tab.
The same tab.
Oh.
Huh. That's bad.
Yeah, so what's happening is it could be a lot of things. I don't know exactly what's happening, but what's happening now is you have a truly blank page where there's just nothing going on. And if you have nothing going on, you can have no errors. However, when you open a new tab, a lot of things could be going on. Like Andrew said, extensions could be going on and throwing errors, and someone has a bug in their extension that you're using. Google has, when you open a new tab in Chrome, it has like those 8 pages that you've recently gone to, and sometimes there can be an error with that as well. And so there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's just what other people someone else screwed something up, and you're just seeing their screw up. So if you want a truly blank tab, just go to about:blank.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Was that the main thing you were?
That was the main thing
you?
that was driving me up the wall, because I wanted to start clean, and then I get all these errors. And I wasn't sure if the code was, running correctly because of those errors were on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just like, you want to, because you can always run into errors like this where it can really annoy you, but just keep in mind that it may not matter. So if you, like, for example, if you just ignore those errors, you'd be fine too. It wouldn't really affect anything.
Okay.
At least for version 1 and 2 in the course. So don't worry about it too much. Unless you start to see like error with your code, then that's when you really want to pay attention.
Okay.
But yeah, good. I mean, if that was bugging you, then I'm glad that we could get that result.
Yep.
Larry, was there anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
sweet. You're welcome. Let's go to Leo. What's up, Leo?
Hi, Gordon. So lately I've been thinking about choosing between like I was like how should I put this into context? So I've been working on like problems in the Beast, and I've been looking at people's solutions, and there are a lot of different approaches to one problem. So I've been always thinking in my head like which one is actually better. So I was just wondering if there's any thing you would look for to compare like similar approaches. So for example, there's a problem about prototype where you have to look through the whole chain to compare if one object is a prototype of another object. And I noticed there are like two very similar solutions. One is you can do it through recursions, and then or you can do it through while loops, but they are very similar in terms of their approaches and where the base cases are. So I'm just wondering like which one would be better if you look at two solutions that are like pretty close.
Yeah. Well, in that case, in that specific case, the question was basically, is something a prototype of something else, right?
Yes.
And so this is, if you're listening, you're wondering what this is about. It's basically about JavaScript's function prototype system. And wait, right? Am I remembering this correctly?
I can pull it up right now.
Okay, you just pull it up. I don't remember what the question was exactly.
Yeah, that was like last year, I think, for you. Are you seeing this?
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's good to have you can leave the question up just for context.
Okay.
Okay, JavaScript's prototype system. Okay. Yeah, so there are two very, very common ways to solve this problem. You've stated them. One is you can use a while loop, and that's totally fine. And then you can also do this recursively, and that's totally fine too. They're both fine. In this case, I don't even know if one is clearer than the other, and so I think both solutions work quite well. Yeah, I think a lot of times there are just multiple ways to do something, and oftentimes the way that is natural to you is the best way.
Mhm.
So, for example, when I wrote this, I actually wrote a while loop when I wrote the answer out.
Is it because it's like it's it's easier to understand, like it's more readable?
I'm not sure if it's more readable. I think like the recursive way I think is pretty readable too, but for me, in the past I'd done a lot of problems using that technique, and so this is familiar to me, more familiar to me. So yeah, I'm not sure if one's better or worse than the other.
Okay.
In this case.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Like the only thing I can find the difference is maybe recursion. You have to maybe there's more load in this stack because you have to open more functions. But
yeah, I mean that's true, but the max call stack size is very large. It's thousands.
Yeah, that's true.
And in this case, you're gonna have a prototype chain, maybe 3 or 4 max. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, true, but it's not gonna matter in this case. I mean, if you're gonna have really long chains, then perhaps a while loop would be better because it wouldn't have that limitation of a Stack Overflow. But
is it possible in like a real solutions, real problem that there are going to be a really long chain, like you have to look down like hundreds?
I mean, it's possible, but I feel like you probably shouldn't be calling a recursive function that many times. Like that's probably more bug with your code than
okay. Right.
Yeah. So in that case, when the alternative is you would have to run a recursive function like 1,000 times or 3,000 times, you have a real probability that you might hit a limitation. In that case, yeah, while loop would be better. But I mean, really, you're gonna have like 5 layers max. So
in this case, yeah.
Yeah, so it really doesn't matter. I would just the one that feels better to use is the one to go with.
What about in the factorial case when you talk about like if you for that functions you can actually go very deep, like you can just say n is 1,000.
Yeah, I mean I think again the way I say this a lot, and a lot of people have heard me say it: don't worry about problems you don't have. I haven't seen that be an issue, and so I'm just not I am not experienced with the problems of that question that you're asking, just since I haven't encountered that problem.
Okay.
But I mean, I think there are 2 tendencies, right? There's one, you can tend to worry about these things a lot, or you can tend to worry about them not so much and worry about them when they come up. And both have their pros and cons, both approaches. But what I've seen much more commonly is people really obsess about things that don't matter and optimize the shit out of stuff that's like run like 5 times. Right? And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what to say. Like it just doesn't really matter. I think Leo, you do bring up good points, which is about how do you think about computational complexity and performance. And I haven't given you a framework to think about that. There are existing ways to think about that would allow you to think about these problems in a more nuanced way. Again, like you really only want to apply these complexity and performance, and you really only want to use those those tools when you need to. Right? Just because you know those things doesn't mean you should apply it to a case where you're going to have like 5 recursive calls, because it's not going to matter. But that could be something that I think in the future of watching code, we haven't gotten there yet, but I think in the future that will probably be something that we end up talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think at this stage it's still, I think, too early. So yeah, I think ultimately, I think what you're looking at is, or I guess what you're curious about is something that is it's important, but it's important at certain times. Like when it matters, it's really important. When it doesn't matter, it's really not important. And then ultimately, I think what I would want to do is equip you with the capability to think about the problems if it does come up. And I haven't done that yet. So that's something that's on my radar.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Next we have Safraz.
Yeah, hi, Goni.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. I just want to share my screen to ask the question. So can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you see this? Okay. My question is like, you have made this function, this method on handlers, and this is to save the that input which you put in the HTML. You save this input in that in this function, okay? And this it is saved in this variable add to do text input, okay? And so this function, why can't we use this function in this display to do function here? Instead of to do list dot to do's, why can't we use this add to do function here? Instead of writing this to do list dot to do's, can we use add to do function, because this input has been saved in this function.
I don't quite understand what you mean. Can you actually write out what you're proposing?
Yeah, one second. See this, we have made this ID, add to do text input, and whatever we write here, okay, is saved in this variable, right? Add to do text input, because you are getting this ID, and we are saving in this variable, correct? And this is a function, I mean, add to do. So this ID has been this input has been saved in this variable. So here we are writing in this view, in this method display to do's, we are writing to do list dot to do's, which is coming from here, to do list dot to do's dot length. Instead of this, can we write this function, because it is saving this input here? So why are we writing this thing to do list dot to do's? Instead of this, we can write this function, because that ID has been saved here.
Can you write out what you mean? Like, can you actually write out what you're proposing? I still don't understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So you're basically saying, can we do this? Can you write that out so I can look at it?
Yeah.
I'm not able to. I can't
Yeah.
follow what you're saying.
Yeah, I write this. Instead of this.
Hey, could I say something, Gord?
Sure.
It's just what he's asking. If you want to find out if you can do it, put it in and run it through the debugger and see if you can.
See, here I've written.
Okay, now I can see what you mean. The reason I couldn't understand is that it just never crossed my mind to do that.
Okay. See, here is the function, and here I wrote that function instead of that array.
So Safraz, here's your homework. run this code, and then I'll get to Devansh and Jason, and I'll come back to you and tell me what you found.
Okay, fine.
The reason is, when you have a question and you're not sure about what's happening, and it seems like you may have had this question for quite some time. What's in your best interest is you build how do I say it? You build a process for figuring things out, right? I think when you're first learning, waiting to ask me is not a bad. It's better than not figuring it out. But what's even better is being able to figure it out yourself. And so, what I would encourage you to do is just to run that code and then see what's going on and test your hypothesis. Because your
Okay.
hypothesis is fully testable. You can just try it and then observe the differences. And when you do that, you'll learn more about your hypothesis and you'll learn more about JavaScript. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back to you
Okay, fine.
in a few minutes and let us know what happened.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And is it, how do you say your name? Is it Devansh?
Yeah, it's Devansh.
Devansh.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How's it going? What
It's going
what are you
good.
up to?
So I'm on accounting JS right now. I mean, this is my first time coming on office hours. But I'm just trying to figure out how to share this screen.
It's in the top left, the green button. You have to hover over the top left. Larry's
Okay.
laughing.
Is that working?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, all right.
Dang, you have 8%. We're gonna lose you.
I'll be quick. The question's not too long. Yeah, so it's on Atom. It's for the accounting JS.
Okay.
Let me comment though. I also just to know, I only watched up to 10, so maybe it comes up in 11. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
But so this is the code that was there originally, where we're checking if something is a string, and we're running this. And I was playing around with this in the console, and I saw that this works too. So I'm trying to understand the logic behind going with this, because I understand these are methods on a string. So if these can run, then the object must be a string that's being passed in. But I feel like it'd be a lot more easier just to check if the type of the object itself is a string. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There is so did you see a video where we go through this exhaustively? Like the line 57?
57. Like where you like where you broke
get
it
to a
apart
video?
in the console?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think like the one where you talked about it, I definitely watched that one.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I know the answer to your this specific alternative. But let me try to see. So if object is equal to the empty string, or objects.
So like my understanding is we're just running these to see, oh, if these methods work, that means this must be a string because these can only run when they're applied to a string, right? So I just feel like it'd be a lot more simpler, like unless I'm missing some key detail as to why this would be a better alternative. You know what I mean? Like it just saves having to go through this, checking this and this. Like it just simplifies it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I have to research more on exactly what type of operator is doing in this case.
Right.
I don't know exactly. I know generally what it does, but there may be. I mean, this is kind of like an edge case. Like, what are the edge cases? I don't know what they are. One thing that is possible. I mean, it's a possible thing. I don't know if it has any bearing on reality, but maybe at this time, I don't know if typeof was in all the browsers at this time in history.
Oh yeah,
I really don't know. So what I would do to answer this question
it was ES5, I guess. Or
I have no
ES4?
idea. I really don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I think the most important thing is you understand 57, just to understand what it's doing.
Right.
In terms of whether 61 is a better alternative, I'd want to understand if there are any instances where typeof doesn't do a good job. What are those edge cases? I'm not aware of what those are, but we would probably need to know those to answer this question. Two is
And I guess you would figure out those edge cases by going through the docs. Is that how you would figure that out?
That would be a good starting point, probably. Yeah. And then if the docs aren't sufficient, you might want to look at the spec, like the actual language manual for JavaScript. That will give you exactly what's going on. And then,
Okay.
those are kind of those are the things I would do, because then you'd be able to know exactly how this is happening. Because what exactly is the check that JavaScript runs in when the typeof keyword comes up? I don't know exactly how the implementation works.
Oh, so you mean look at the actual code as to how typeof is coded?
Here,
Is that what you mean?
I'll show you what I mean. So later on in Accounting.js, we actually do look at the ECMAScript specification. It's a document that explains how JavaScript is supposed to work, so that if you're implementing JavaScript in Internet Explorer or Chrome or whatever, then you basically follow these rules. So for example, this is the ES6 spec. Like, it basically says like how every single thing is supposed to work. Type of operator. Well, I don't know, the shortcut didn't work, but there was a section on typeof, and you basically want to look at this document. Where is it? Type of operator. Yeah. So you'd want to look at this section to understand exactly what it's doing. The documentation will usually only give you a couple of common use cases. It probably is unlikely to say exactly how it works. But for you to think about the edge cases, you need to know exactly how it works. And then after I do that, I would probably look at the history and see if it was written that way for historical reasons.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, those are the things I'd have to do. I don't know off the top of my head. But if you're curious, that's how you could find the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know how curious you are. If you're not that curious, it's fine.
No, I think it's best if I just move on for now.
Yeah, but
come back later.
But it's good to know, like, in those really hairy situations that you can figure things out. And you'll see an example where I refer to the specification later on in Accounting.js, because sometimes you get into these really hard to figure out problems that the documentation doesn't address, and you just can't find anywhere else. Then you need to really see how the language works. Mm-hmm. And so kind of the last resort is to look at the spec.
Okay, yeah, that was all. Yeah, not a big question, but yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. Jason, did you have a question, or you just wanted to hang out?
I have a lot of questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Okay, I will wait until the broadcast is over to answer those questions.
I'm kidding. Sorry. Just wanted to chime in.
It's good to see you, Jason. Did you have any technical questions, or what have you been up to?
Just been around for a while. I want to see what everybody's asking these days. Not sure. I'll hang out after hours.
Okay, cool. We'll talk then. I guess we'll check back with Sarfraz and see where he's at.
Yeah, hello. Hello.
All right.
Got it?
Yep. What did you find? Tell us.
Yeah,
Teach
I have put the debugger in this and I have run this function.
Well, can you
Okay,
share? Can you share your
so
screen?
yeah, sure. Can you see?
Not yet. No. And yeah, now I can.
Yeah, I've run this debugger and I'm getting an error.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of errors.
Yeah, it says that add to do is not defined.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about that? Well, now you know. You asked me. Your first question was, "Can I do this?" And now you know you can't. Right.
Yeah.
So that's some progress.
But
What do you think about?
my question? Yeah. It is not defined itself.
What are you trying to do right now?
Actually, I was just looking that what I wrote is correct because it was working earlier. I mean, this was not working. I had to do, but that to-do list or to-dos was working. So my question was that why can't we write this function? It is
Can you slow down the clicking so you can focus on one thing?
Find out. Machine is hanging. Actually, we are saving this add to do text input in a variable, so which we gave the ID in HTML. So that is a function, right? Add to do in a handler. It is a method. So this add to do, if I use in this, it is not working. Display to do.
Close the hello tab.
Yeah.
And then it'll refresh. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can hit show now.
Yeah. See, this is the variable add to do text input, which we have wrote in the HTML, right? To get the input value. And we are getting that value and we are saving in this function add to do. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this add to do is now having that value, whatever we are writing in that HTML, that input.
Can you repeat that? I don't follow.
Yeah. See, we have wrote this variable add to do text input, and we are saving that input value which we are writing in HTML. See here, index of HTML, we have given this ID, right? Add to do text input, correct? And this ID is we are writing here in as a variable, okay, to get the value of that input which we are writing there in HTML.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We are saving in this function add to do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this add to do is an to save the value what we are getting from the HTML. So whatever we write in that HTML, like whatever we are writing in that input, it has been saving here, right? In this function add to do. Correct?
Add to do text input is available in the add to do method. Yes.
Yes. So we are saving that input value in this, right? Hello.
What I just said is correct.
Yeah. So here in view, we want that value to come, right? To do text. Here.
Why do you want it to be there? Here you want the
Because
length of, you want to know how many to-dos there are, right?
so
What?
we write the to-do list or to-do set length.
Right.
So instead of this, we are why we are writing this, because we want that to-do text value, right? Which you are getting from the input, or this is the array what we are getting from here. Because this to-do text input, it will save here only, like to do, it will save in a to-dos only.
Where are you in practical JavaScript? What version?
Actually, I completed whole thing, and I
You
was
completed the
just
whole thing?
yeah. So second time I'm doing it, but in a different way. Like I'm writing uh, like what I'm doing is like I'm writing first time.
Service, slow down. Let's go back to the code. I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
I think you're jumping too far ahead, and there are fundamental misunderstandings present right now. So go back to the code that you changed before. Change 26 to the way you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
What is happening there when you call add to do? Well, first of all, what variable are you referring to?
Just what we wrote in handlers.
Do you remember how we accessed? So go back to the code we had before. Just undo.
Yeah.
How do you access the to-dos?
To-do list or to-dos.
To-do list dot to-dos. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you access handlers dot add to do?
Handlers to like get the value, input value.
So okay, so we right now we're accessing a property on the to-do list object.
Yeah.
How do you access a property on the handlers object?
Handlers dot add to.
Okay. Do you see what the problem is with what you had before? Add to do doesn't exist.
Okay. Add to do.
Do you understand that?
Yeah. This is I mean handlers dot add to do. Okay. If I want to write, and add to do does not exist only.
So type handlers dot add to do. Okay, at least you don't have an error now.
Yeah.
Right, because now you're referring to what you want.
Okay,
Before
I got it.
Nothing. Okay, so now what is happening in 26? I don't understand what's happening. Can you explain to me what you're trying to do? Like what,
actually,
like why are you?
Yeah.
How is I less than a function?
Yeah. Actually, I was just confused between this part, handlers part, because whatever index that input we give, it is saving here, okay, in handlers in a function called add to do. So instead of writing to do list or to do dot length, I was trying to write add to dos, which I was thinking like we can get the value from here. So why we are referring to do list or
How is that the same thing?
Okay. Because we are saving this to do text here, no, add to do in add to dos. Because here also we can write instead of add to do text.
So Sapphirus, so write this down as a comment. So at the bottom of this file, write this down. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 1, add 3 items. So start from a blank and add 3 items. Those items are the words 1, 2, and 3. The words
1.
2 and 3. That's step 1. Okay. The next thing I want you to do after you have that is you're going to add a 4th item.
Should I write it?
And you're going to call it 4th. No, write down, add a 4th item called 4th. I want, when you go back and do this exercise, I want it to be clear. So add a 4th item called 4th.
Okay.
Okay. The next thing I want you to do is, well, right before you add a 4th item, so go one line above.
Yeah.
Put a breakpoint, add a debugger statement in the first line of add to do.
Okay. Debugger statement
In the first line of add to do. Okay. And then when you do line 39, when you add a 4th item, you're going to pause there. Okay. When that happens, I want you to look at 2 things. I want you to look at add to do text input, and I want you to look at to do list.todos and to do list.todos length, and look at the 2 things.
Okay.
They're not the same at all. They're very different.
What should I look? To do dot. Sorry. To do.
Yeah. So
list dot to do, right?
Look at to do list.todos
Okay.
and to do list.todos length. And look at add to do text input. Add to do text input in line 14. Right. So for your code to work, where you're in line 26, where you're somehow referring to add to do or whatever, to do list.todos.length has to be the same thing as the replacement. If it's not the same, it's not going to work. And so I want you to see that. This if you do this exercise, you'll see that.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
That's your homework. If you want, you can go and do that, and then we're gonna go off the air now since there are no more questions, I think. And you can show us the results of your exercise, and we can help you again. So Safraz, what I'd recommend is stick around and just do this right now, and then in 10-15 minutes or whatever, come back to us and we'll take a look again and help you out.
Yes. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Okay. So with that, we're gonna wrap up. Thanks for all the questions from everyone today. It was a fun conversation, and hope it was helpful. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for joining too, and hope that if you found it worth your time. If you have any questions or feedback for me, you can always email me. My email address is gordon@watchingcode.com. So you can hit me up there. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for joining, and I hope to see you next week. If you want to join us for kind of off the air casual chat, we'll be in the Hangout for another. I'll be here for at least 15 minutes. Jason's gonna be there. He's back. And it's usually a fun conversation. So if you want to join that, then you'll want to call into the Hangout. And if not, then I'll see you next week.